Welcome to Gold Derby's Meet the Experts TV documentary panel. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Amanda McBaine, director and producer of Girls State on Apple TV+. Amanda, you filmed Boy State in 2020, which went on to win an Emmy, and now you have Girls State, which follows 500 adolescent girls from all across Missouri as they come together for this week-long immersion in democracy to create their own government. How quickly after filming Boy State were you like, all right, we need to do Girls State next?
Well, it's actually the first thing we thought of. We wanted to do Girls State, and we actually were talking to Texas Girls State at the time that we were also talking to Texas Boy State. So we always knew we were going to do it. It didn't work out with the Girls State there at that time, but for various reasons we did Boy State, but we always knew we wanted to do it. It was really about when, where, but not why. So yeah, it was always on our mind.
And this program has taken place in every state since like the 40s, I believe. So in Boy State, like you said, you filmed in Texas. In Girl State, you do film in Missouri. Why did you choose that state for this project?
I think we wanted to get out of Texas. And for a minute there, we sort of auditioned a number of states across the country. And the first place we went was California. We thought we did the big red state. What happens if we do the big blue state? But what we really needed more fundamentally than the politics of the state was a big program. So some of these programs are smaller than others. We needed a big, diverse program. And Missouri has a giant, well-run program, and the leadership there are game for the kind of filmmaking that we wanted to do, and not every program leadership was. But also, to go back to the politics of the state, Missouri is fascinating. It's sort of emblematic of a lot of states in our country. It's not a battleground state, but it does have a really interesting mix of pretty liberal, very liberal politicians, and then very, very conservative ones. And the kids reflect that. And that's what we needed also in what we were going to film, is a diversity of politics.
How blind do you go into filming, like in terms of what you learn when you get there? Because one of the big things that struck me were the inequalities between what Boys State has become and what Girls State is, including about a $400,000 difference in funding, at least in Missouri. I mean, what sort of things like that struck you as you were going through this process?
Well, I mean, I'll rewind a little bit and just say we were pretty terrified to make this film because so much had worked with Boys State, and we'd explored so much of what we wanted to explore about how kids were processing this very polarized time that our country's going through politically. So what was going to be new about a Girls State film? Would it just be the same film starring girls? And I think part of what I wanted to explore for sure, or we, Jesse, my husband and I are filmmakers together, was personal, but we have two teenage girls, and we know some of what girls, at least teenage girls and women, face that men don't. And what I didn't know, though, was the degree to which the programs really are unequal. So there's a certain amount of, you'll see in the film, there's a certain amount of internalized stuff that I was expecting, like girls tend to be more perfectionistic, girls tend to be more polite, and like the certain internalizations of stuff that I was interested in exploring. How would that play out in creating a new democracy? But what I hadn't expected is the way that these programs are run are very different, and that was a surprise. And part of it is because they're funded differently, which I shouldn't be surprised about, but it did feel like kind of old stuff that you'd hope we'd come past, like Title IX or whatever else. It just felt a little bit, a lot about these programs have a little bit of a old-fashioned quality to them. They're trying to reach forward, and there's a lot that I love about them, and but some of it is stuck in the past a bit.
Well, another thing that sort of landed in your lap as filmmakers is this Girls State Week happened to be taking place as the U.S. Supreme Court was making their judgment on Roe v. Wade. So that really became center of mind to a lot of these girls who had very opposing viewpoints on abortion. And it was really fascinating to watch that among teenage girls who were on both sides of the issue. One thing that it seemed they all sort of agreed on, though, was like, why are men making these decisions? It seemed like both the pro-choice and pro-life girls all came to that conclusion. What was that atmosphere like as it started circulating? Because it was circulating that the news had been leaked that they were going to overturn Roe v. Wade. So what was that energy like while you were there?
Um, that was also one of the reasons we wanted to make this film. The Girl State program builds the third branch of government. So we knew we were going to see an all-female Supreme Court, hear a case that was being argued by women in front of a room full of women. And, you don't ever know, you kind of hope that that case they're going to hear will be relevant to what's going on in the country, at large. And that is generally how it works with these programs. They kind of, the real world sort of trickles in and filters in. And it's, of course, something as momentous as the overturning of Roe v. Wade is going to be top of mind. We didn't know there was going to be a leaked opinion. I don't know if that's ever happened before. So that really happened like a couple days before these girls convened for session. So it wasn't just top of mind. It was really part of every conversation. You see these girls at lunch tables having the conversation because that's what they came here to do, is talk with each other about hot button, but also very personal political questions. Going back to the program, though, they were prevented from actually talking about politics sort of on stage or in these big set piece moments. So we're happening only in these lunch table conversations. That frustration, at least with the girls we followed, were very ambitious, very knowledgeable, and also in Missouri, very worked up about this issue because it effectively rendered Missouri, because it was a trigger law state, you could not, it would be illegal, 1 week after the case became official. So they were very, very, very activated to have this conversation. So eventually when the training wheels kind of came off the bike, they started really having this conversation, building a Supreme Court, and then hearing a Supreme Court case, which was fascinating to watch them at least take ownership of this conversation for a brief moment amongst themselves.
And it's fun to watch the relationships develop. I love the friendship between Nisha and Brooke, because these two are unlikely friends. Nisha was very serious and shy. Brooke was outgoing, and they somehow bonded at Girl State and then got pitted against each other for one position on the Supreme Court. Talk about following that friendship dynamic and how you decide, which subjects you're going to follow, because there's 500 girls here. You can't follow everyone.
Wait, it's critical that we find who we're going to follow way in advance of the event getting started, because once it gets going, it's light speed. I made up a word. I call it female strum because it's just total intense chaos. And unless we're tethered to certain people, we'll just get lost. So we spent about 6 months finding the 7 fantastic, and very different from each other kids we were going to follow. Nisha is, extremely smart and, but was very nervous about going into this space because of she was just worried she wasn't going to be able to navigate the social pieces of things. So for her preparation to go to this event, it was not like learning up on any kind of case law or anything. She watched Legally Blonde, which I thought was hilarious because what ended up happening, and we did not make this happen, I promise, but who she meets and literally is competing against is the real life embodiment of Elle Woods. Just this,
Yes.
she's the head cheerleader. She's a fantastic girl, like knows her stuff, and is incredibly skilled at socializing. And so knows everybody in camp within like 2 minutes. So that was a really fascinating, we, I guess, conjured her, but there she was. And that became the dynamic they had to work out.
Yeah. And Emily and Faith, these other two, are both running for governor. They're both very ambitious, very different personalities. Faith is a people pleaser, or Emily's the people pleaser, and she just wants to meet everyone. She goes through some very awkward moments trying to make conversation, and Faith doesn't really care what anyone thinks of her. She's just all about like, just look at my politics, look at my issues. What was fascinating about that is that they both then go to like this to give their speeches, and they're kind of overshadowed by someone who just goes up there with no prompter and gives this fiery, passionate speech. What was that like to watch play out? Because to me, that personified what politics is. It's not about like your policy, it's about your ability to rally and inspire. So we sort of saw that play out in Girls State.
I find those conventions really exciting because you just don't know what's going to happen, and there's always going to be a wild card you hope actually in documentary that someone surprises you. I was a bit surprised at Emily's. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who is going to watch the movie, but like I was hoping to be surprised, and I really was by the
Yeah.
whole event. And like Boy State, where we had a kid who didn't know he could give a speech, and he stood up on stage, and it was like you just watched someone literally find their voice. And that is very exciting to watch, particularly in young people who are just kind of finding their footing. All of these people are incredibly smart. It's just true. It's true for that position to be a governor, you have to be able to electrify a room. And it's almost like you're a musician on stage. And some people got it and some people don't. And that doesn't mean they shouldn't go into politics. In fact, Faith, she's really, she's probably going to be a congresswoman within the next 5 years. She's just that smart, that dedicated, and that knowledgeable about policy. So she's that person. And then there's other people who are behind, the sort of the schemers. Those people are important too.
Well, it's fascinating to watch. Anyone who loved Boy State will love Girl State, and I can also say it's a very different documentary. So don't feel like if you've seen one, you've seen them all. This is really its own thing, and it's equally as well done. So Amanda, congratulations! Thank you for joining our TV documentary panel, and good luck this Emmy season. Girl State also, by the way, is streaming on Apple TV Plus.
Thanks, Em.